Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
What's your name?
Jimmy Reese.
You don't look like a Jimmy.
What do I look like?
I don't know, but not a Jimmy.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Pint, a pop culture podcast. My name is John.
My name is Lloyd.
And first off and foremost, I'm fucking tired, man.
We are so bright and chipper right now.
We're not in a good place right now, but we're recording your episode for you this week. Let's go over some of the stuff, right? I'm just tired of working. We don't usually complain on here, but Lloyd's got some teeth issues, right? You have like
all of a sudden I have some really amazing nerve pain. Yeah, nerve pain.
So my uneducated guess is maybe a root canal might be in need. So Lloyd's got teeth pain. I just worked a 14-hour day. I'm tired. StreamYard. Let me just talk about StreamYard for 1 second. StreamYard is the what I use to record the podcast when we record not together, whatever you want to call that. Remotely. That's the word I could not think of because I'm tired. I've had StreamYard since the pandemic. We did Zoom at the very beginning, and then once I found out about StreamYard, I picked up on that. Whatever level I was on has been $25 for about 4 years. Well, they just rejiggered their levels.
Yeah.
And the base level now, which is the closest to the level that I had for 25, is $45 fucking dollars.
Oh, fuck.
Now, I don't care, right? Like, we are very lucky that we have the Patreon, and I'm not complaining about that factor. I'm complaining about the fact that fuck you, StreamYard, for like $20. Like, why don't you do like 7 or 8 or 10? You know, but like literally $20. And the other day, last week, one day, I recorded a Patreon episode with our good buddy Stu, and he said, "Did you hear about Patreon or fucking StreamYard that they were doubling their?" And I thought it was hyperbole. I thought, people are like, "Oh, it's doubling." No, it almost doubled. Almost.
Wow,
doubled.
that sucks. Everything's being rejiggered.
Yeah.
I don't know how many rejiggering emails I get. Oh, this price just went up. This price just went up.
My Hulu just went up.
Fuck you all. You all just went up like recently, and now you're all going up again.
Right. My Hulu just went up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know how much it went, but and it wasn't anything crazy, but I think it was like $3. And you know what?
They got the triple play thing there.
Yes. And that's what I changed to that because it's a long story, but and now I feel like I'm not getting a deal anymore. Shudder went up big time. Shudder was like $50 or something, 55. Now it's like 75.
All right. It's time to cancel. I'm going to go through a big culling.
I am too. I am too. But we're not here just to complain about
no
finances and how we're getting fucked by these streaming services and StreamYard. Because again, thank you, Pint Insiders. This is not a plea for help or anything. I'm going to continue to use it.
Right.
And it's a good service. It really is. But
we can't cross streams. So.
Yeah, we can't cross streams because you know what happens when that happened. Let's think about some good things before the episode. We hung out with Ashley and Maggie on Saturday.
We had a blast.
The girls from the former Rock Candy podcast came down from Troy, New York, and spent the day with us, and we drank a lot and had a good time and had dinner, and it's always good to see them. I think their podcast is still able to be listened to. I think it's still on the streamer. So if you've never listened to them, even though they haven't put out episodes in probably close to a year and a half, 2 years, Great music podcast, the best music podcast. Tons of episodes, lots of 2 and several 3-parters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the Ramones, Bowie, Queen, Rush, a lot of 3-parters.
Yeah, really well researched, funny, just great couple of people there, and it was awesome hanging out with them. So just wanted to say that. So now let's just get into it. We're here. It's our first episode after 350. We did the Speed 2 with Sir John, and now we're back in Tom Cruiseville. Let's talk about it. Let's do Jack Reacher.
Hey! Fire it up! 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 Fire it up!
All right, Master, tell us all about the production of Jack Reacher.
We are cruising for a bruising. Jack Reacher came out 1/2/21/12. If you didn't get that, that's 12/21/12. Director and screenwriter for this was Christopher McQuarrie, who made his directorial debut with the 2000 flick The Way of the Gun,
Oh, we talked about that.
which
yeah.
you can listen to with us and the, at the time, Mobile Horror Companion.
Yeah.
You'll have to go back to May of 2021 to hear that one. Prior to that, he wrote another little flick called The Usual Suspects.
That's right. I forgot
Yeah,
that he
he
did that.
won
yeah.
a BAFTA Independent Spirit Award and an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. So, he's got a couple of good films under his belt right away. And I'm going to list some other movies, and you just tell me if you can see a common theme here.
Go.
He did in either directed, wrote, or produced, or some combination of all those. Jack Reacher, Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, and Dead Reckoning Part 1, Valkyrie, Edge of Tomorrow, Jack Reacher Never Go Back, The Mummy, and Top Gun Maverick.
I think
What do you...
the tenuous thread might be one, I think Thomas William Maypother IV, a.k.a. Tommy Cruise.
Tom Cruise, he's got a boner for some Cruise.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe they have a boner for each other.
Maybe.
Whatever.
Hey, you know
Whatever.
what? It's 2024. Let's do it.
Yeah. Besides those, I think the only non-TC titles are The Tourist and Jack the Giant Slayer.
Oh, right, yeah. Because he also, Jack the Giant Slayer, Usual Suspects, he also was involved with Bryan Singer for a while, although...
That's correct.
Yes, yeah.
And then a little bit of uncredited writing on Batman and Robin.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, the X-Men, the Wolverine, and one that we both love, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
Okay, all right, good,
Yeah.
good.
Uncredited. So this movie was based on a series, adventures of Jack Reacher series of novels. I'm sorry, trying to spit that out. This particular one was based on called One Shot by a British author, Jim Grant, under the pen name of Lee Child.
Yeah, One Shot was also, I guess, the working title of the movie right up until the very end. Yeah.
Yep. So the series itself, the book series, chronicles the adventures of this Jack Reacher character. He's a former major in the U.S. military, police, and now he's a drifter who's born to walk alone.
That's it. He's like Kung Fu, just walking the earth.
Yeah, just key the music there. So he just roams the U.S. and takes odd jobs and investigates suspicious and dangerous type stuff. As of 2024, which is the year we are recording this, there are 28 novels with a 29th on the way, I guess set for October of this year. A major difference, and we won't really get into it too much, but the Reacher in the books is like 6'5".
Right.
And if you know anything about Tom Cruise, he's literally 5'2". No, he's 5'7".
Inverse 6'5". He's 5'6". Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference, but I guess Lee Child, he had the faith. This guy's got the intensity. He's maybe got 100% of the intensity and like maybe 80% of the height or something like that. So he figured it would work out.
I read that he backed it when the movie came out, And then when the show came out, he reversed his stance and was like, no, this is the guy who should have been Reacher from the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I read too. Let's talk about that. So actually, no, let's do the filming locations. Let's talk about the filming locations. It started production in October of 2011 and was completed in January of 2012. Filmed almost entirely in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, it looked very much like it was probably filmed pretty much all there. Yeah,
very little outside of Pittsburgh, but let me give you one location outside of Pittsburgh, and then I'll tell you something else that was filmed there. Monroeville.
Oh,
you familiar with Monroeville?
Yeah, of course. Our buddy Stu. Yeah.
So, and you know what else was filmed in Monroeville?
The Dawn of the Dead.
I'll tell you. Mindhunter Season 2, the episode with Son of Sam and Charles Manson.
Okay, the second most famous thing to be filmed in
two
Monroeville.
Fucking amazing episodes of a great show. But yeah, as you said, Dawn of the Dead. And I looked it up, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that was filmed there.
Yeah, I think Dawn of the Dead just probably like takes the cake.
Oh, yeah. That's the king of them all. Cruise did do all his own driving stunts. I guess he did all of his stunts, everything, especially the signature car chase that goes through, and he did all that, and even the stalled out, and when he bumped into the police car and whatnot, that was all like accidents, that happy accidents, as you might say.
He never runs in this movie.
Yeah.
He never runs, never sprints.
Nope. And the only CGI effect in the whole movie was the backwards driving scene towards the end.
Oh, okay. When he's using the camera to drive backwards.
Yeah. So I don't know what they CGI'd. Maybe running into the rock. I'm not sure, but that was the only scene. Everything else was all him. The hardest one, the one he liked the least, the most dangerous, was the one in the bathroom, where the guys are trying to beat him.
Oh,
but there's no room to swing a bat in a bathroom.
That's a great scene. It shows you the folly of close quarter combat when using like long weapons.
Yeah, right.
Kind of doesn't work.
And it was actually his idea to add the comedic stuff to it, probably to save his own ass.
Well, the comedic stuff, such as when he beats one guy almost to death with another guy's head.
Yeah. And the two guys like constantly hitting each other and fighting for room to beat him. All right, so let's get into a tiny little bit of very down stuff. So the premiere was supposed to come out December 15th in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Well, it just so happens that the day before that was the Sandy Hook elementary school shootings. And of course, there's a sniper and there's gun action. So rather than do that, they just, they were very grateful for the town of Pittsburgh, but they couldn't do the premiere there.
Right. Yeah, I read that too.
And speaking, the very last thing here, speaking of the sequels and the TV show, I have never seen the TV show. It's just called Reacher. It's on Amazon Prime. Stars Alan Ritchson.
Yeah, he's been in other things. He was in very recently. I haven't seen it yet, but that Henry Cavill, Guy Ritchie Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and he was in Titans as Hawk of Hawk and Dove. He's been in a few things.
He was in that. Okay.
Yeah. He's big dude.
Yeah, big dude. So there are 2 seasons of that, with a third renewed for a third season.
Yeah, it looks good. I've heard it's good too. I've heard the first season in particular is a good watch.
And that's it for the production. Who do we have for the cast?
Allow myself to introduce myself.
All right, as Jack Reacher, we have Tom Cruise. You know Tom Cruise from things such as Top Gun, of course, the Mission Impossible films, Rain Man. As the district attorney, we have playing the district attorney, Helen Rodin. We have Rosamund Pike, a British actress with doing an American accent in this. You might know her. Her film debut was in the Bond film Die Another Day. She was in the recent Saltburn, and I think she's probably most famous for being in Gone Girl, which I've never seen.
You should see that.
I heard it's good. I've never seen it. I heard it's good. She's like, there's some kind of hotness going on there, but I can't pinpoint it. It's like, she's kind of like almost like attainably hot, but still hot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like she's not too hot to be hot, but she's not. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but she's pretty hot.
She definitely has some kind of look to her, almost a superior look.
Yeah. Richard Jenkins plays her father. I'm sorry, he's the DA. She's the prosecuting, or she's the. Which one's which? He's the prosecuting. She's the defense.
Yeah.
So he's Alex Roden. He was, of course, in Step Brothers. He was also in There's Something About Mary and Bone Tomahawk. Playing the villain of the film, Zek Chelovek, which in Russian translates to, we find out, human being prisoner. Mm-hmm. It's Werner Herzog.
Love him.
Werner Herzog. He is a creepy Eurotrash villain in this. Acting-wise, I'll just go over one thing if you don't know who this is. He is the guy in The Mandalorian that starts everything off in the first episode of The Mandalorian. He's the Imperial officer that sends the Mandalorian on his way. If you don't know who he is, picture him from that. As a director, he's much more well-known. He directed Rescue Dawn with Christian Bale. He directed the 1979 Nosferatu the Vampire and Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. So he's an actor-director. David Oyelowo, I know I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah.
Plays Detective.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. Plays Detective Emerson. He was Martin Luther King in Selma. He was in a film called The Most Violent Year, and he was also in Interstellar. And on Paramount Plus, in that whole Yellowstone family of TV shows, they had one that came out last year that I heard was pretty good called Bass Reeves Lawman, and he plays Bass Reeves in that. So, let's see, who else do we have here? Playing Charlie, simply Charlie. He's kind of the villain's muscle. It's Jai Courtney, who is an Australian actor. He was in The Suicide Squad, which was the newest one, and also Suicide Squad, which was the first one. He was also in Terminator Genesis and the Divergent series of movies. Robert Duvall, you may have heard of him once or twice. Mm-hmm. He plays a character named Martin Cash. If you don't know him, Jesus Christ, he's in The Godfather 1 and 2, Apocalypse Now, and he won the Best Actor Oscar for his role in Tender Mercies. And the last one I'll shout out in this is Michael Raymond James. He plays a character named Linsky, who at one point is almost forced to bite his thumb off, but instead takes a shot to the head. He was in True Blood, the first season. Law and Order Organized Crime. Law and Order Organized Crime. I didn't know there was a Law and Order show called that.
Never heard of it.
But apparently it is a spin-off of the Christopher Maloney character from SVU. It's his own show now. And then he was also in Black Snake Moan. So that is the cast.
Black Snake. I'll say one more. Joseph Sikora as the shooter, the accused shooter, James Barr.
Okay, yes.
The U.S. Army sniper. Also was in Ozark. I watched Ozark, and he was Frank Cosgrove in Ozark.
Okay, didn't watch it. But I hear it's great. Didn't watch it myself.
Yeah.
All right, so this movie starts off pretty much right there in the heart of Pittsburgh, right at the PNC Park, and we see a white van park in a parking lot. We see the driver pay for parking, which is going to be very important in the plot of this movie. But we also see
with
flashes,
the purple thumbnail,
with a purple bruised thumbnail, and we also see flashes of this guy like loading and building his own bullets. He's obviously a shooter. But what's important about this scene is before he goes on the shooting spree that kind of is the centerpiece of this movie, we see the character's face. So this movie very much is not a whodunit. For our characters in the movie, it's a whodunit, but not for us. It's a whydunit.
Except I do have to say, once I saw the James Barr character, I had to rewind it and go back just to look again, because I'm like, I don't think the guy looked like that, but I needed to prove it to myself.
Right, but it's very clearly Jai Courtney.
Oh, yeah.
The Charlie character.
Yeah, there's no question.
He steps out he's in like kind of like a across the street parking garage, and then using a high-powered rifle, just starts to terrorize people and ends up killing 5 people. We get a guy on a bench with some roses next to him. We get a couple different women. We get a girl who's with a young girl running, kills all of them. And we end up finding out through the police, in one of the many conversations that the police and the DA and the different attorneys have, is that they ended up arresting the bar character. And when they arrest the bar character, he refuses to say anything, but he writes one thing down on a sheet of paper. Lloyd, what does he write down?
He writes down simply, "Get Jack Reacher."
They start looking into it, and what do we find out from the little amount of digging, or the massive amount of digging that they're able to do? What do we find out about this Jack Reacher character?
That basically he was ex-military police, and that he's been off the grid for a couple years, or however many years.
And as they're explaining it, we see him, but they never show his face. There's got to be mysterious in a Tom Cruise movie who Tom Cruise is. But we see like his daily life. He has ID. He doesn't have a permanent residence. He doesn't own a vehicle. He goes to a Goodwill at one point and buys new clothes and then donates his old clothes. It just seems like he doesn't need more than what's on his back. That's the whole idea of the character. And also, Lloyd, I don't know if you noticed this, but it's the same effect you have. Every woman he comes into contact with gets wet immediately. Even when he goes to the Western Union office, and there's that like kind of older woman, and then she's like,
I did notice the girl look at him when he dumped his old clothes into the Salvation Army bin.
It happens every time he deals with a different woman in the movie. In that
funny.
Salvation Army bin, the Western Union woman, when he goes to the bar and has his meal, when the waitress comes over, they both like fuck each other with their eyes. It happens multiple times. And also, we're going to meet her soon. The young girl, Sandy, is like, I get off at 6. And he's like,
yeah, right.
Okay, calm down. So
Sandy, you're a sweet girl.
Yeah, you're
But this ain't going to happen.
No. Jack Reacher is easily 25 years older than you two, and you might be like 18. So he, through kind of the news clippings, gets wind of what's happening. So just as they're about to reach out and find Jack Reacher shows up and introduces himself into the proceedings.
Yeah, I love it how people are talking about someone. We don't know how to find this guy, and then he shows up.
Yeah, Jack Reacher is very much the character in any movie that's constantly 2 steps ahead of everybody in the entire movie and has the answer to everything, right? Did you,
Yep.
you kind of...
He has the answer to every freaking thing. And even the one answer that he's got wrong, maybe he just did that as a mulligan.
Yeah, just to play around. Now, meanwhile, the bar character, we don't see this, but we see it in flashback.
Yeah.
After he reaches out for Jack Reacher, or tells them to, he is beaten on a prison transport into a coma. So now the shooter can't talk to anybody, and so they're going to have to dive deeply into figuring out like how this happened. But what does Jack Reacher tell them, Lloyd, about Barr that he knows from their days in the military?
Well, he tells... Are you talking about what he tells Rosamund Pike?
Yeah, well, about what he did, like
basically
his crime.
That he was trained as a sniper, as an expert for 2,000 hours. Is that what it was?
Something like that. 2,000.
I don't know how many years that is, but lots of training. This is his whole purpose. He also goes through that thing. There's 4 kind of people that join the military, right? When they're patriot, or their family did it, or they want a job, or they just want to kill people. And so he puts him in that category. And he does this training, and he's put on a mission. And for 2 years, he's on this mission, and he's looking through his scope, and he never ever gets to fire a sanctioned shot.
This is kind of almost like the plot of, do you ever see Jarhead?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jarhead, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, or Peter Sarsgaard's character, starts to go fucking crazy because the one thing that they're trained to do, they're not allowed to do.
Right.
And so he takes it upon himself to do what?
He just randomly chooses. He's pointed into an alley, and some guys get into the alley, and he just fucking pops them all because he's got to scratch that itch.
And they were they were a mercenary group, or
unbeknownst to him, they were on a raping spree.
Yeah, they had on the previous week or a couple days had raped like upwards of like 28 girls and women from like age 11 to older. So like, it doesn't really get swept under the rug, but Jack Reacher is an investigator and knows what he did and basically tells him like, look, like if you even fart wrong in civilian life,
I'm gonna put you down.
I'm going to put you down. But when he comes, he starts to realize that like things don't seem right. And this is where we start getting into the investigation portion. Rosamund Pike's character, Helen Rodin, is the DA and
the DA's daughter.
The DA's daughter. And she is the one who is supposed to be defending Barr against these accusations that he's the one that did it. And she convinces Jack Reacher to be her investigator for her because she knows that he's kind of invested in the case. And he knows the most about this guy, but he also puts it on her to humanize her a bit and tells her, well, I want you to go and introduce yourself to all these families because your job is to defend this useless piece of shit that murdered these people's someone in their family. And she does do it. To one point, she goes to a father's house who's clearly on edge. He has a gun. It's actually a pretty good scene. Where he's threatening her without threatening her. It kind of reminded me of the scene, a lighter version of the scene in Zodiac when he's in the basement looking for the poster. And then he realizes that like he might be in the Zodiac killer's like basement. It's kind of the same thing where she's talking to this father who's clearly very fucking angry that she has the balls to come here and want to talk to him. And he moves his like newspaper away from his couch and you see a fucking handgun.
She's like, clearly I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Yeah. He's not having it. She eventually gets away. I do want to point out a actual line that made me laugh out loud. I thought it was really good was when Jack first comes and meets with, the Emerson character, the detective, and Richard Jenkins, the A character, when he first introduces himself and then kind of tells him all this stuff about how he knows who Barr is and like kind of his whole thing. I like when they're leaving and the cop says, it was really weird to meet you.
Yeah, that's right.
I like that. I thought that was a funny
good line. He seemed like a pretty smart guy because he's like the lead investigator and he's going over the original scene, like way in the beginning. Like they brush over so much time in a matter of like a minute or two in the movie.
Right.
But he's investigating and he seems like pretty tuned in during that investigation.
But then we see Reacher doing his own investigation.
Yeah.
And
into the same place. And he comes up with a totally different scenario.
Whereas he says, if this guy is as good of a shooter as he claims he is, and what Reacher's saying is that, yes, this guy was highly trained. Yes, he killed those mercenaries, but they were easy shots. What this person did was much more skilled. At the level of shooting that Barr was at, he could have done it differently from a different vantage point with a little bit of a different angle with the sun to his back. So like he sees like that maybe this guy would not have done this way. Meanwhile, we get a scene where Jack Reacher goes to a bar and he starts kind of having a conversation with this young girl, Sandy. He kind of accuses her. She's coming on to him a little bit. He kind of is being sassy with her, he kind of calls her out for being a hooker, never says hooker. There's kind of a funny little, line back and forth where she calls her boyfriend over and his friends. And we get the scene we get in movies like this where it's like, okay, all five guys are going to go outside and now we're going to have a fight.
Don't say that to my sister or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, all five guys, that's their sister.
So he takes him outside and he tells him like, look, I've given you multiple chances to back away. This is actually a much better version of a similar scene that was in the Roadhouse remake earlier this year.
Oh, okay. I never saw that.
The Roadhouse one had some funny bits in it, but it's very similar where he's trying to get them not to do the thing that he knows that is going to get them hurt. And then but what I like about Jack Reacher is he gives them their chance. And once they deny it a couple times, he's like, okay, here's how it's going to go. It's not 5 against 1. It's 3 against 1 because I'm going to beat the fuck out of the first guy. 2 of you guys are going to have the balls to try. And then after I knock your fucking teeth out, the other 2 of you are going to run away.
Yeah.
And we get a scene where he does just that.
And I love the way that scene starts too, because they're ready to go and he just goes right at him, like immediately. What's he do? He gets his leg. He kicks his leg out, and then the guy's like just totally bent over. I think he gets him in the solar plexus too. And he's bent over, and Tom Cruise is holding the back of his neck. He's like, "It's okay. You're all right. You're gonna be fine." Right. And then it kicks him in the nuts.
Kicks him in the nuts as hard as he can. He takes care of them. The cops show up, and he's putting things together. The cops got there too fast. This was a setup. This was
the
not,
cops were there immediately.
none of this was a real like bar fight. And then we see the back end of it. And the back end of it is we meet the Zek character who we don't really find out. I mean, we find out in the end what's going on to an extent, but he is just plug him into the role of action movie villain. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's the leader. The Charlie guy is his muscle, and they make it very clear that they have ways to do things.
And they have that other guy that the one that you mentioned before.
Yes. Well, Linsky. And
Linsky.
He's the one. So Linsky is like their local connection.
Yeah, he's the local dude.
And Linsky, because these guys did not get Jack Reacher or kill Jack Reacher, he kills and makes the leader of that group of guys that started the fight with him disappear. And they're not happy about that because they didn't authorize that.
Yeah, because he thinks he's doing such a great thing, taking it in his own hands. No worries. I distributed the body.
Right.
And like, oh, fuck, that's just loose ends now.
Right. They're very
And then you
clear.
get the whole finger biting scene. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, explain. So the Zek explains that he was in prison for a long time, and to avoid just to survive in Siberia, just to survive and to avoid certain things, he had to like fucking cut his own fingers off at different points. He shows his hands, and he's got like 2 fingers.
Yes.
Right? He's
got
like
nubs and like a pointer finger.
Right. He bit 2 of his fingers off to avoid working in a salt mine or something. Bit another one off to survive something else. So he's trying to show he'll do whatever it takes to survive. And now Linsky has screwed up, and he wants to see if Linsky is able to do whatever it takes to survive. So he tells him what, Lloyd?
He tells me, he goes, all right, if you want to recover from this, you got to do what I did. And he's like, all right, well, just give me a knife. He's like, no. Did I have a knife in Siberian prison?
Yeah, no.
No. So he starts gnawing on his thumb a little, and he's maybe biting down, like quarter strength probably.
Not even.
And he's whining and complaining. He's like, I can't do it. Got to be some other way. And so they shoot him. The Jai Courtney character shoots him, and I love what Zek says. He goes, "Always they choose the bullet."
Yeah,
I don't get it.
So through the course, as the movie goes along, we follow Reacher on his investigation. He's putting things together. He's starting to see that it looks less and less like Barr did this, but he's trying to figure out who did do this. And one of his theories is that if Barr was a shooter and Barr was in the civilian world, he had to have somewhere that he frequented shooting, and he had to have somebody that knew him well enough to discuss some things with that maybe he wouldn't normally discuss. So that's another part of the investigation. Meanwhile, he's pretty convinced throughout the whole thing that there's a very good possibility that Helen's father, the DA, might be working with these people. And the film does a really good job of never letting you kind of not believe that, because every time she talks to him, and she doesn't infer it a lot, but like when she says like, well, can I trust you? He never seems to get righteously angry about it. It's almost like he just lets it go. So in our head,
Richard Jenkins, is that the actor?
Richard Jenkins. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's very good at, being in the right place at the right time to make you suspicious of him. His glares and his facial expressions, they're very suspicious.
Yes. Yes. We get a good fight scene at the house of... He goes to the house of the kid who's been killed by Linsky to find out who paid them to attack him. He doesn't know that the kid is dead, but when he shows up there, he ends up getting attacked while investigating the bathroom, and he notices while he's in the bathroom that like the shower curtains have been ripped down. So he's putting things together that this wasn't like a kid moved out of here fast. Somebody was probably rolled up in that shower curtain. He's standing in the bathroom and his back is like adjacent to the door frame.
Yeah.
And we see these two guys sneak up on him, and the guy takes a swing at him, but the door frame stops enough of the bat to not hurt him too bad, but he
Right.
still gets cracked in the head
Yeah.
and knocked into the bathtub.
That may be the first time anyone's gotten the jump on him.
It's the only time. I think in the movie, it might be the only time anybody got the jump on him.
Yeah.
He lands in the bathtub. These two guys start to attack him, but as they're trying to fight him in this small bathroom, they're hitting each other with the bats. It's a lot of pandemonium and chaos.
Yeah. And it's a real funny scene.
It's a good scene. It's a good fight scene to the point where he finally gets them in the hallway and ends up knocking one guy on top of the other and then just uses the one guy's head to bash the other guy unconscious. Right? Does the kid tell him who hired them, or what does the kid tell him? The kid gives him the car.
He gives him the car keys, right? And he's like, "That, yeah, I think he gave him a name and the car keys, and so he knows where to go."
Right. So
Is
as
that when he goes to the shooting range after that? Or
no, the car chase happens first.
Okay. Oh, right.
Oh, so here's what happens. Okay, here's what happens. He's been talking to that girl, Sandy, because she was kind of involved with all this, like in a minor level. Like she was like an accessory. She meets up with Jai Courtney, who pretends to be like an old friend of hers. And then like in broad fucking daylight, well, not daylight, it's nighttime, but like in the middle of like this fucking apartment courtyard, Jai Courtney, his buddy, who looks like, by the way, did you notice his buddy that he hangs out with through the movie and who they have the gunfight with at the end?
Yeah.
Looks like a jacked up Wayne Arazu from the Countdown podcast.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's Wayne.
Yeah, it looks like Wayne.
One Punch Wayne.
One Punch Wayne. He punches her and then pretty much knocks her out. Jai Courtney, Charlie, chokes her to death. And then the cops find her body. When the cops find her body, the reason for this is because the cops know that he went to see her at her work. Jack Reacher did. So when Jack Reacher shows up to the hotel that she's been found at, his hotel, in a stolen car, the
Emerson just happens to be right there.
Happens to be right there. You know, get out of the car. He goes to get his sidearm. Jack Reacher takes off, and we get a pretty good car chase scene that lasts about 5 or 6 minutes through like the alleyways of Pittsburgh. We got Emerson in his unmarked car, and then we've got a bunch of cop cars, and they're driving up and down alleyways. Like you said, at one
runway
point,
tunnels. It's a lot of good chasing.
At one point, he stalls out. That was a real stall, apparently, and gets the car going again. He ends up getting away, and he ends up getting to move along to this gun range that he has determined that him and Roden have determined that that Barr was frequenting. So the story kind of splits up here. Helen ends up getting kidnapped by one of the actual bad guys, who is not her father. Who is the actual mole? Who is the actual
mole? Is the detective Emerson?
Yes,
the guy who pretty much you think is like a wonder kid and solved everything and figured out who Barr was and thought about checking the coins in the parking meter.
Right.
Which becomes a big thing in the end.
Right. That's one of the biggest things with Jack Reacher on this whole thing is why would this guy pay for parking? And the answer is because when they frame Barr, they use Barr's thumbprints on a quarter to pay for parking. They also made it a point to collect all of his gun shells, but leave one there that matches up with gun shells that he had at his house. So like so Reacher is very clear that this is a setup from the beginning. He goes out to the gun range and he meets up with the gun range owner, who is Robert Duvall. Some
very good scenes with Robert Duvall. I mean,
they all are. They all
not even so much Reacher and Cash. His name is Cash. It's not even so much that, but I think it's a good scene with just Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall.
Yes. Yeah. Because
like the characters didn't mean anything at that point.
Right. They had a good rapport. The Cash character is like, I know who you are. I saw you shoot in a competition at one time. I know you're impressive. Yes, Barr used to come in here. Yes, he was a good shooter. But let me show you some video, because he did come in with another guy. There was another guy that came in with him. a few times, and we see on the video that it's Charlie. So now Reacher is like 100% knows that this is what's going on. But while they're out there, he gets a phone call from Charlie, who basically says, "Look, we got the Helen character. We're gonna kill her. Why don't you come out and see us? We'll settle all this." They're at a construction site. Now, Lloyd, they're at a construction site. What is the actual answer as to why 5 of these people were murdered and this whole thing happened?
Well, part of the investigation that Reacher did was in the lady, Helen, which she find out who each of these people were and like what they were doing and, you know, what their lives were like. And it just so happens that one of those folks that was murdered was the wife of a recently deceased construction company owner who was going to sell her company as soon as, you know, it's what she wanted her husband to do. But after her husband passed, she decided to keep this company. And so this was basically industrial sort of espionage and takeover.
So the Zek character, his entire thing, and we find this out, he says this.
Yeah, it's his construction company, right?
It's
Zek.
He just wants as many construction companies as he could have.
Yeah.
Because his whole gig is he gets contracts from the government and then overcharges them. It's a long game, and that's the answer to it. They killed 4 people randomly to make it look like a mass shooting just to get to the one woman.
Get one.
So that they can absorb her company. So that's the answer right there. There's your answer as to the mystery. But we're past that at this point. And he's like, no, doesn't really matter to me. Hangs up.
Yeah.
He gets 3 calls back from the bad guys because he's basically like calling his own shot. He's like, look, I'm not coming in an hour. I'll come when I want. And when I do, I'm going to kill you. Right. I'm going to kill you.
He actually calls them back. I think it's a little thing he's doing when he's playing a game with them.
Oh, I thought they called him back after he hangs up, right?
No, he called them back twice.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Like, and then as soon as the guy starts saying, "Oh, what we're gonna," and then he just slams the phone down again,
right?
And then calls him back, and he's frustrating the fuck out of him. And then finally, at the 3rd time, he lays down the rules. He's like, "This is what it's gonna be, and this is how we're gonna do it."
So he talks to this Cash character, and Cash is very willing to help him out. Because
really,
did you feel the same way about that? Like it just seemed like
I'll talk about it at the end.
Okay, okay, because I thought the same thing. I understand that like there's like this brotherhood of military type thing. I understand all of that, but like I thought, boy, he's doing this very easily. Something that I did read that is an actual old timer gun shooter thing is Robert Duvall when they're at the range has shells in his ears, bullet casings.
Oh, okay.
And they said old soldiers would do that when they were at the range. They wouldn't, they didn't have the little malleable things that go in your ears. Yeah. And if they didn't have cans to put over, they would put bullet shells in their ears. This is where it all ends. Reacher and Cash go to the construction site. Cash is going to be Overwatch and play sniper and give him some coverage. Reacher is going to drive Helen's car backwards using the license plate camera.
And funny, because Cash keeps his eyes closed the entire time when they're outside at night.
Yes.
Keep his night vision.
He keeps his eyes shut when he's not shooting and his head turned the other way. And the other thing that's funny is earlier in the movie, as Helen and Jack are in her car, she has like all of her boxes of paperwork in the back seat. And she says, like, I told you, I bring my work everywhere. Those boxes of paperwork save his life multiple times because as he's driving backwards and Charlie and Wayne Arazu are fucking shooting at him, the boxes are stopping the bullets. Eventually he ends up crashing the car on a rock and he has to get out and kind of hide behind rocks. We get this whole scene where it's just like it's a pretty good shootout scene where Cash is taking these guys and what I like about it is it's not like bullshit sniper shit where he's just there's 3 bad guys and 2 of our guys. And Cash is not just terminating these guys. He's shooting at them. He's kind of like, keeping them covered, but he's not hitting all of them easily.
And he does hit the one guy through the corner of one of the trailers.
Yes.
And he does fall, but he's not even dead.
He's not dead.
He gets up a little later.
And then finally, after they end up killing, after Reacher ends up killing the other 2 guys, Charlie has the drawdown on Reacher, and Cash takes a shot and is able to disable his weapon.
Yeah,
But
that was a good shot.
good shot, like it makes the gun unusable. Charlie leaves that area and goes to the main office, and Reacher follows him in like a bulldozer, and gets out. And then we get like the fucking mano a mano showdown, which we knew was coming because there was a couple times in the movie where, you know, Reacher had said, "I'm going to kill you." And
I want to beat you to death and drink your blood from a boot.
yes, I actually like that. I like that line. And then we get a hand-to-hand combat scene, a little bit of knife play. But essentially Reacher beats him, and he might not drink his blood from a boot, but he smashes his fucking head in with a boot.
Head stomps him.
Head stomps him. And then he goes into the actual office, and what's happening inside the office?
Did you
Master?
get this scene? So in the office, which is just a trailer, the Zach character is just sitting on a chair in the back. He's basically harmless. In the middle of there is Helen is sitting on a chair, but Emerson is right behind her, and he pulls out two guns, one on her head and one straight ahead out the door.
Right.
So there's like no way Reacher could come into view without being shot.
Right.
But somehow he does. He has a little conversation outside on the corner of the door, you know,
Yep.
where he can't be seen, and they talk about the coins and the parking meter. But then he comes through and somehow shoots Emerson, who is behind Helen. Maybe there's a tiny corner of him. Maybe I just didn't understand what happened there. But
I think you're supposed to, from that, realize that Jack Reacher is just better than
he can
most
just
men.
shoot magic bullets and
Not
go
even a
around.
magic bullet, but maybe he determined that he knew that when he stepped into view, that Emerson would have to move just enough to see him better to shoot, and he knew that if his head came out a half an inch from her head. Now, granted,
Yeah, he's got a half inch.
right. Is that realistic? You know, but no, has half the shit in this movie been realistic? Probably not. He pops him and then goes inside and has a conversation with Zach where Zach explains to him the whole plot, like I had just told you, why he was doing all of this. But then Zach tells him something interesting. He's like, I'm not going to go to jail. I'm a feeble old man. You're going to go to jail because you're essentially a drifter. You are wanted for the murder of this young girl. They're going to look at you for all of this. And Helen is like, you know, like kind of sitting there and Jack is, I think in a lot of movies, what I like about this scene is where there would be a little bit more thought on the hero's like mind about all of this.
Yeah.
And what does Jack Reacher do?
He just processes his stuff immediately, and he just shoots him right in the head. He just said, well, I'm not going to jail. And he points, you know, he shoots him. So there's no witnesses, not a single witness.
Right. He immediately puts the gun next to Emerson's dead body, tells Helen, I'm leaving, and I'm going right back to where I was before, unfindable. You could want me for murder, but I'm unfindable. So that's where we leave Jack Reacher. He, you know, takes off, and we see him at the end of the movie on a bus to the next town. Now, I want to rewind, Lloyd, because there was something I wanted to ask you that I forgot all about. Let's go back to the car chase. So he has this massive car chase with the cops earlier on.
Yeah.
And he eventually drives it onto a crowded Pittsburgh street, and he's just coasting, and he gets out of the car, and then he walks into a crowd of onlookers and disappears into the crowd, which kind of makes sense to me, because if they didn't notice he was the one in the car, if you want to say that. But then one of the onlookers gives him his hat to help him hide.
Yeah, to cover him up.
Why? They don't know who he is. They don't know what he's done. They don't know why the cops are looking for him. I didn't understand that.
I think just to protect a guy who's running from the cops. It seemed a little odd. Maybe that one guy in particular, you know, maybe he had his own run-in with the cops. You know, he just figured he'd help a buddy out.
I felt the same way, and I felt like I wish that there was a scene with that guy earlier and the guy recognized him.
Yeah.
Like where
You do see them on the bus later, and
Right.
you know, he gives him his hat back, and it's a
Yeah.
funny little scene. And then that guy you're talking about, he gets a little smirk, a little smile on his face.
I wonder if the point of that is just generally like people's dislike of cops. You know what I mean?
Could be.
And like just saying like, yeah, this guy would do this because, you know, fuck the cops, and this guy probably didn't do anything that bad.
I mean, I don't know anything about Pittsburgh cops in particular. You know, I mean, I don't think. I mean, as far as I know, there's no big like bad rap for Pittsburgh cops, but it's probably anywhere. So
It's a strange little scene, but
yeah,
but as the movie's ending, Jack Reacher is on a bus, moving on to his next town or wherever he's going. And we hear the loudest case of like an abusive boyfriend or husband on a bus ever. Like,
Oh God.
like, I hate to say that I know this stuff must really happen, but Jesus Christ, like a bus full of people and he's like, I told you to shut up, whore. And then like you hear her crying, he slaps her. And then we see Jack Reacher kind of get up.
Yeah,
And
we just see him get up.
we know what's going to happen. We also get the ending with Barr.
Oh yeah, we get the little bar explanation ending that sets everything right with the DA.
Right, with the DA, where he explains that, yes, I did something terrible, but, like, she asks him, like, how would you have done this? Because he's, like, has no memory of anything from a coma. And he explains it the exact way that Jack Reacher explains it. I would have done it from this highway. I would have used the sun to my back. I would have stayed in the van so that it caught all of my bullets, my casings. So she sees that, like, there's no way he did this. Like, it just helps her buy into the fact that Barr was not the shooter. So that's the end of Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher would return one more time in 2016 in a sequel. I think it's called Never Go Back. I never saw that one. I did see this one prior, but I never saw that one. All right, let's talk about the box office.
Show me the money.
Looking good, but I think I'm taking too long. Back to the spot for a Glock. I took a loss over floss, but still got a knock.
All right, so this was what, 12? What was the release date, Manster?
12/21/12.
12/21/12. So right around Christmas time. This thing had a $60 million budget. It made $218 million overall, so it did pretty well. Obviously, made a sequel a few years later. It did most of its money overseas, though. It did not do super, super great here. This is obviously not like Top Gun Maverick or Mission Impossible. This isn't like a Tom Cruise like all-star, but it's definitely something people kind of remember. That weekend, number 5, been out for 7 weeks, $5.5 million. Lincoln. Number 4, out for 5 weeks, $5.7 million. Rise of the Guardians, which I think is that Zack Snyder CGI owl movie, I think. I don't know.
Wow. I don't know either.
Opening that weekend, number 3, $11.6 million. This is 40, Paul Rudd, comedy from Judd Apatow. Actually a really good movie. I like that one quite a bit. Opening at number 2, $15.2 million, Jack Reacher. Tom Cruise did not open at number 1. That must have stung a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And at number 1, it had been out for 2 weeks, $36.9 million. Lloyd's favorite movie ever, The Hobbit, an unexpected trilogy.
We just talked about that last week.
We did. It keeps popping up. All right, let's rate this thing.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
0 to 5. 0 being the worst thing ever, 5 being the best thing ever. Lloyd, what do you... Oh, quarter and half scale optional. Lloyd, what do you give Jack Reacher?
Oh, wow. So I liked the movie. I liked it. And I think it's got some good action. And I think Tom Cruise, man, he can carry a movie, man. That guy has got star power.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's 5'7". He, in a movie, in a role like this, he's a guy that you would not want to mess with. I don't quite understand the relationships between the characters, like the Zach and Charlie, the shooter, and Emerson. They don't ever explain any of that, and I just don't know how those three came to be a team.
I think the Zach is like a criminal boss. Charlie is his like right-hand man, and then wherever they go, they just pull people into their wake. That's what Emerson's just a dirty cop.
I'm just not sure I bought that whole scenario, but you have to because it's in the movie. And I know the movie explains it, but I didn't really get the relationship between Barr and Charlie, the shooter, and going to the shooting range and putting a different target. So when he pulls it back, it's got the best spattering of targets that he's ever seen.
Well, they were using Charlie's targeting, his actual shooting, and
Yeah.
making it look like Barr did it to make him look like a better shooter to make it clear.
I get it, but it all just seems so contrived to me and like not real. But
Right.
I mean, I kind of get that. I think Rosamund Pike's character Helen, I feel like she's underutilized, or just that she's there to sort of fill in. I don't think she's like carrying anything. She's not there to serve a real purpose and drive the plot. I feel like she's just incidental. Like I said before, I like the Cruz and Duvall dynamic. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I just didn't quite buy all these circumstances, and I don't know, that kind of lost it for me enough. But it's got enough action. I like it. What was the name of the sequel? Don't Go Back. I wouldn't go back.
Never go back. Yeah.
Yeah, never go back. So I would not seek out the sequel for this. I would watch, maybe try and watch a few episodes of the TV show.
Yeah.
But I know it sounds like I'm saying I don't like this movie. I just don't buy some of the movie. I still think it's a pretty good movie. So I'm going to give it 3.25 out of 5.
All right. I think this is the dictionary definition of a 3 for me.
Yeah.
This is an enjoyable watch, but it is like, it's like saltines. Like you can eat enough saltines to not be hungry for a while, but you're not going to go, man, those saltines are so fucking good to anybody. Nobody's ever said, man, saltines are so fucking good. It's a very vanilla movie.
Yeah.
It is a procedural with some action undertones. You get the Jack Reacher character, who I understand like what they're doing with this character, but like it kind of gets frustrating when a character is always one step ahead of everybody. He knows every answer. He puts everything together. He's had this movie solved for the most part 20 minutes before everybody else figures anything out. But there are some good action beats. There's some witty dialogue here and there. Good performances all the way through.
Yeah.
This is the kind of movie that I could see like our friends over at Forgotten Cinema doing, because if you had to sit there and name Tom Cruise movies, I think you would be hard pressed to pull Jack Reacher out in the top 10. You know what I mean? It's this is a guy who makes memorable movies for the most part, whether you like him or not. So yeah, it's a solid 3. It was an enjoyable watch. I can see how the character is popular in print. If every book is like this movie, a different adventure where he solves crimes, people love that stuff, right? So I could see where if you like that stuff, you would go back and back and back to these things. I'm sure the show is probably pretty good, much like you. I haven't watched the sequel in the 8 or 9 years that it's been out. I'll probably never watch it, but I did not dislike this movie. It's just literally there.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We feel the same way about it.
Yeah. 100%.
I was a little heavy on my rating since I went first.
No. Well, 3.25.
Yeah,
I don't think you're wrong with a 3.25. I think a 3. I do not fully understand why the Duvall character goes with him at the end so easily after they meet like once, and he's like, I'm gonna risk my life for you, brother. It seems a little bit heavy, but again, that kind of goes with the Jack Reacherness of it all, where people just like want to deal with him and like he has this charisma that's unending. But yeah, it's a 3. It's a fine movie. I don't hate it. I don't own it. I'll never watch it again after this.
Yep.
But if it was on TV and I was, maybe vacuuming or doing stuff around the house, I wouldn't necessarily shut it off right away.
Speaking of Wayne Aruzo, isn't he a fan of the TV show? I think I've heard him say that.
I think he is. I think he mentioned that he, we know Wayne's a fan of like big buff guys, big, strong, muscular guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that probably has part of it. I do think I remember Wayne mentioning that he loved the first season and that the second season was, as he would say, fucking ass, man.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So that's Jack Reacher. We're the Pint. Lloyd, tell them where they can find us.
If we were up your ass, you'd know.
That's right.
Find us on any of your podcatchers, on Facebook and YouTube. It's at the Pint, a pop culture podcast, and Instagram and Threads. It's at the Pint Podcast. And you can be a Patreon. You can be the insider. Get your special stuff at www.patreon.com/thepint.
See ya.
See ya.
P.S. StreamYard. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
It's over, Johnny. It's over!
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!